We're here to talk about a report around ethics of smart education.
How to use AI for good. So we saw a lot of misuse and the risks.
My focus is the protection of not just the students, by the way, the teachers as well. If it's just the private sector that determines, then we can have issues.
It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Professor Cristina Godoy from the University of São Paulo and Professor Yanis Ben Amor from Columbia University. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure.
I understand you have a very interesting report to share with us today.
We hope so. So it's part of this partnership that we have ongoing for the third year now with FII Institute. So Columbia University and FII Institute, we signed a partnership 2 years ago around AI and the future of work. And we've been releasing reports in healthcare, in education, in macroeconomics. And this time...
We spoke about them.
And we have spoken about them at various venues. Yes, healthcare was in Riyadh, and then education was in Tokyo. So now we're here to talk about a report around ethics of smart education. What we did is we looked at 6 very different countries: France, Qatar, Japan, China, US, and Brazil. And we basically looked at various aspects of how they are implementing smart education and all of the ethical challenges that may come from that. But Professor Godoy, who is a lawyer, might have more things to say about that.
Professor Godoy, what was the most surprising finding for you personally?
I think that when we are talking about smart education, we expect how to use AI for good. So how we could help children in order to have better access in education, use the benefits of AI. But then we start to check out the risks, and they are not so little that we could, dismiss this kind of risk. So we saw children that are exposed by these risks. For example, you are collecting their emotions and how you will treat it, and how you will collect it without the consent of these children. So we have a lot of risks. So I think that the most sensitive part here is we are expecting using AI for good, but we saw a lot of misuse and the risks in the other side.
You also mentioned different countries. How do you see different countries dealing with AI with our children?
So actually, the countries were not chosen by accident. We kind of knew that they fit within 3 categories that we were really interested in. So France was representing the European Union. And as always, the European Union is extremely protective of, the end user. Let's say in healthcare it will be patients, and in this case, in education, it's the children and the students. So there is a law called GDPR that makes sure that basically the primary focus is the well-being of the human, not the company that is developing the AI. And then, so that's one extreme. On the other extreme, you have her country, Brazil, and the United States, but she will be able to tell you that, where it's really fragmented. Depending on where you are in the US or in Brazil, you might have very different interpretation. And then finally, we have what we call state-governed, like Qatar, Japan, and China, where it's really done at the top, and they're moving the agenda forward with the intent, of course, of protecting the well-being of their students.
Professor, tell us why this fragmentation in Brazil and the US?
First, because we are a federation. I think that this is an important issue, because you have different states, different governors, and different treatment of this subject. So you can check out states that have a lot of concern about the data that it's collected in schools or with professors, because it's not only the problem with children, but also with all the teachers that are in the room, and also they are subject of this kind of misuse. So you have some states, for example, the California, or for example, the state of São Paulo, that are both states, they have a lot of concern about how to treat all this data, but you have other states that not. So the difference and the regulatory difference that this makes, you saw a lot of difference. And if I may add this point, also in European Union, as Yanis mentioned, you have AI Act now in place. And for example, in Brazil and the United States, we don't have a bill, or we are discussing now a bill, but we do not have an act that regulates, for example, artificial intelligence, specifically these kind of subjects.
Professor Yanis, you mentioned France and the EU. Can we say that they should serve as a benchmark?
I would say yes. I am European, and I do think that the way that the European Union is doing it is the right way, because my focus is the protection of not just the students, by the way, the teachers as well. But the American perspective will be, you are not allowing the companies to do the full potential of their innovation, because you're putting so many regulations, you're putting so many barriers, that at the end of the day, why would this private company want to invest money into developing a tool that at the end of the day is supposed to be for the benefit of students, right? I mean, as we saw in Tokyo in the previous report, artificial intelligence has an immense opportunity to reduce inequality in education. But we also have to make sure that we're putting these guardrails in place. If it's just the private sector that determines, then we can have issues. And let me just say one thing. We've all been through that problem when we download a software, right? The first thing is you have to agree to 100 million pages that one is, of course, that you're skipping. But the problem is, what is it that you are allowing this company to do with your data? So are we okay that for the benefit of our children, the data that they're collecting could sometimes be kept for a lifetime, because you're following them from the childhood, maybe all the way into adulthood?
Just to understand, what kind of data are we talking about, for example?
The marks of
Grades.
these grades of the children, the attention, because if the teacher is not giving an amazing class, for example, the children are not pay attention in this class, they will also treat this data and check out how to deal with this. Another thing, for example, in the case of Brazil, that they used in order to check out if the child was really in the school, in the classroom. So because we have a big classroom, so it's hard to control all the children that are there. So to make the presence, it's important. So you have a lot of things. For example, also children performance, that you can use AI in order to analyze this. And this is too risky.
Sometimes, depending on the country and depending on the software that is being used, there is data collected where you are not really sure why it is collected.
Yes.
So for example, the income of the parents, or the background of the parents, or the level of education of the parents, or where the child is living. You can already anticipate, why is it that they're collecting this type of data? Is because they're trying to put the children maybe in some kind of category, and you see the negative impact that it can have.
And how long is that data here to stay?
In Brazil or in United States, you can stay whatever you want, because you don't have any law that will make a prohibition. So what we think that it's important to have this period. And when it's not even more necessary, why should you stay and keep with this data? You need to discard it, because what we need to avoid, it was exactly what Yanis told us. We need to avoid the profiling of people, and this is too risky for our society.
Professor Yanis, your report calls for trusted, ethical, and future-ready smart education systems. What does it actually look like in practice?
So one of the things that I find the most important out of the policy recommendations that came out of this report is the centrality of the role of the teacher and the professor. What we're hearing a lot now is human in the loop, right? So basically artificial intelligence is going to complement the work of doctors, of teachers, etc. Let's keep the human in the loop, great. But in the case of a teacher and a professor, I think we have to be more demanding than human in the loop. Because what does that mean? Is it that the AI is expected to do most of the decision and you just have a human sometimes checking? I wouldn't want my children to go through this. I think it's exactly the opposite. It should be the human is the central figure and the artificial intelligence is complementing and helping with the activity. And what I worry about is that we are only in 2026, but people have already almost given up. It's like we are in 2076, 50 years from now, and the role of the human has disappeared. But we are at such an important moment in our history where we can still make these important decisions now before it's too late.
You both mention students, you mention professors, teachers, but you don't mention parents. What can parents do about this? What is their role in this?
Yes, they are the main part. I think that it's central also. We have the parents in the loop also, because parents, they need to take part of this education, because we are not talking about instruction. Instruction, of course, it's the role of the teachers and the school and so on. We are talking about education. Education, it's culture, it's also instruction, and what the children will read in vacancies. So the parents are very important. So first, they need to know what people will do with the children's data. Because they will check out what kind of future I want to them. And also they have data that they will give to the schools, and what they will do with all this data, as Jens told, for example, what's the income, their nationality, and so on. So the parents, they are subject also, but also they have an important role to the future of the education.
If I may add, I would say for any parent who is listening to this video, are you aware of how artificial intelligence is being introduced in the classroom of your child and what kind of data is being collected, and are you okay with that? I think that
I'm not to answer your question.
It's a two-way street. You need to be having these conversations and not be a passive, basically bystander. It's okay for you to ask these important questions as a parent.
As you said, the time to act is now. And as you know, the FII Institute is all about impact. So if there would be one thing from the report you would like every education minister to take and implement, what would that be? Question for both of you.
For education, we need to think about the future of the children. So we need to think about artificial intelligence as a tool. And as a tool, we will have the control. And the children, when we talk about data, the children are responsible for their data. Okay, they are children, we have parents, but they need to hold the data, and we cannot use it for any purpose without the consent of the parents, of the teachers, and so on. So the most important, if the message, if I can summarize it, I think that we need to check out AI as a tool. So we will use it in our favor, not against us, and the future of education needs it.
Professor Yanis?
I would add, prioritize the humans. Prioritize the children, prioritize the teachers, and every time that you take decisions, ask yourself, is this to the benefit of the human, or is it to the benefit of, let's say, the company that has developed the tool? Is it to the benefit of the government? If the answer is not always to the benefit of the human, then maybe the decision is not the correct one.
And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.